You're listening to Three Kitchens, a member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. Join your hosts, Heather Dyer, Sarah Somasundaram, and Aaron Walker, for good food and some fun in the kitchen.
Hi, I'm Emily.
And I'm Brienne, and together we make Emily Missed Out, a podcast where Emily and I dig into the long list of films that Emily hasn't seen.
It's a very long list.
Totally long list. And help her catch up on all of the pop culturally relevant lines, characters, scenes, and tropes that she may have missed out on.
We're also a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network. You can find us online at albertapodcastnetwork.com or wherever you find your podcasts. Join us for my pop culture education.
Yeah.
Hello, welcome to yet another episode of Three Kitchens Podcast. I'm your host, Heather, with the other hosts, Aaron and Sarah.
Hello.
There's always three of us. Hello.
I like the hi, like, with your other host.
Our other hosts, none other than Sarah and Aaron.
Piece that together, Aaron.
Oh, boy. Or don't have to edit everything we say. Just let it be. It's fine.
We're just living our best life here.
We have giant mugs of coffee.
Yes.
We're wearing bathrobes and pajamas.
It's so comfy. It's
I'm dressed. This is my day
morning.
clothes. My day clothes
you're
look like
dressed.
pajamas.
But I saw her get dressed.
Yes.
She was getting
On the
dressed
Zoom?
On
Yeah.
Zoom.
I was putting my shirt on
We
the
fooled listeners.
What have we got going on today, ladies?
What do we have going on? I did want to do a shout out to a new small business. It's called Cotram Kitchen. So excited about this one because if you live in our area,
That's Northwest Calgary.
Northwest, you are in luck. It doesn't matter. You can live anywhere. She also delivers. This is a Vietnamese food new business that has started up maybe a few weeks ago.
Ooh.
And she makes food and she puts out the menus on Facebook and Instagram, and you can make an order and you have to pick it up or get it delivered, and the food is amazing. I haven't tried everything that she has done, but she puts out a new menu every week on Mondays.
Ooh.
So go check her out. I have picked up the spring rolls, which has pork and crab meat in it.
Oh,
I
yum.
got 30 and I froze them. And if you have an air fryer or you can pan fry it, it's like within minutes, you've got a meal on your plate. Delicious. The other thing that I say is a must-have, and you guys have had this, is that she sells Vietnamese, what she calls Vietnamese. They call it butter, but it's actually a kind of mayo. And she also sells the pate for it. And I just got a whole bunch of buns and some deli meats. You put the pate on, you put the mayo on, and the deli meats, and you guys had it. How delicious was that?
Oh man,
Really
it's all
delicious.
in the sauce.
Yeah, that's always going to be in my fridge. I think I told her I think I'm going to make a standing order to get that every week because it's so good.
Are you in there with the spoon?
Yes, I'm in there with the spoon. I am. And so, I'll just give you an example. This week, she has platters out. So now I almost want to just have a party to order a platter for. Like, for example, one of her platters has grilled chicken, grilled pork, the beetle leaf wrapped beef, and big, massive jumbo prawns.
Okay.
If you look at the pictures, the platters look amazing. And she also has single order meals. So if you don't feel like cooking on a Friday or a Saturday or a Sunday, go ahead and grab a lunch for them. The prices are really reasonable.
Ever since you shared that mayonnaise and the pate with us and told us about the spring rolls, I wake up every morning wanting spring rolls. Like
You better go buy some, Aaron.
I'm going to have to go and put an order in because oh man, am I craving spring rolls right now.
And they're the traditional Vietnamese spring rolls. So they're wrapped in the rice paper.
Oh, yum.
So
They're
really
my
yummy.
favorite.
Yeah. Really yummy. Yeah. So good. So good.
Yeah, we'll post a link.
So yeah, go check her out.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. How did you find it if it just opened like so recently? How did you come across it?
Because I know people. I know people who know people.
Okay.
Sarah's a socialite.
My hairstylist, who I have been spending a lot of time with the last couple of weeks, is very good friends with her. So he actually posted it. And when I was talking to him about it, he actually helped me make an order. Over.
Am I allowed to say you wouldn't know you were spending a lot of time with your hairstylist based on the way you look?
Sorry, Vinny.
Sorry.
It's hair for radio.
I know, it's hair for radio.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's
we're all dealing with bed hair, so it's
that's why I put mine in a ponytail, because you should have seen it when I got
it under control.
Mine's too short for a ponytail.
Yeah, you've got the blue and it's
Wolverine.
Einstein.
Mine's like Wolverine hair.
You look a little Einstein-ish this morning.
Einstein. I think Wolverine for sure.
Didn't we hear about an Einstein lookalike contest for Pi Day?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
We're just a little bit late for that.
I wondered where they found those people. Now we know. It's just bedhead.
My nails and that hairstyle, that's totally X-Men. I think you got this wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be where my mind goes.
She's just trying to be cooler than the nerd.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I want to be the brawn, not the brain, okay?
I'm X-Men, not Einstein. Come on.
Yeah, how offensive. It's always fun to see what you do with your hair. Okay, so when this episode comes out, it will be almost Easter. So even though it doesn't feel quite that time right now, I've started thinking about it.
Are you kidding me? My kids have seen the Easter propaganda in the stores, and every weekend they're like, is it egg hunt weekend? Can we go? Is it chocolate this weekend? Yeah, no, they're prepared.
It's a little later. Sometimes Easter is like the last weekend of March, but not this year. Although I was at the Dollarama yesterday, and it is Easter. It's Easter if you step into the dollar store, for sure.
And the grocery store too.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the candies and whatnot. Okay, so I'm going to bake Easter bread. I think pretty much any country where people celebrate Easter, you have some sort of Easter bread. Hot cross buns come to mind. I'm not actually sure where hot cross buns are from. They're not my favorite, honestly. I think it's the dried fruit in them. Doesn't work for me.
I agree.
Oh, wow. I'm the odd man out then. I love me a hot cross bun.
Yeah.
Oh.
As soon as you said that, I was like, damn, she's not making hot cross buns.
I'm not.
My husband's favorite too, but the raisins, again, like what?
And I like a raisin. I like a raisin in a cinnamon bun. I don't know what it is different in a hot cross bun. No idea. Maybe if it's homemade, it would be different. I've only ever had like store-bought or bakery-bought.
I've only ever had store-bought, and I like that shit.
Well, hopefully
Happy
you like
Easter.
this as well. I'm going to make Ukrainian Paska bread. Paska means Easter. So there you go.
Okay.
It's Easter bread. And it is described to me. I've never had this, but it looks beautiful. It is because when you bake it, you form the dough into shapes that go on top of the bread.
Oh my gosh.
So when it bakes, and it has this beautiful top of some sort of, sometimes they're religious symbols for Easter, like crosses. Sometimes they're just sort of curlicues and like rosette shapes, and braids are common, a braid around the edge.
Oh, nice.
So it kind of, your bread bakes in the shape of whatever vessel it's in. And then the top kind of pops up with these shapes.
Right.
It looks beautiful. It's really beautiful.
So what are the usual vessels? Like, is it a round bread, like a bun, or is it a loaf?
And no, it looks more like a cake. And often they are conical. So you could bake it, like I've seen some things where it says you can bake it in whatever you got, basically.
Right.
But like even a coffee can.
Right.
So, it's cylindrical and tall, and then with the shapes on top. But you could put it in anything. I was actually texting with a friend of mine this morning because she's of Ukrainian heritage. And I said, have you ever baked Paska? Do you have any tips for me? And she said, yes, I have. And she sent me a picture of what she baked. And she used a springform pan. So quite a big,
Right.
a big loaf, round.
Right.
It was gorgeous. But my concern has been like, do those shapes actually stay in the shapes? Like, sometimes bread goes wonky and like you get a big.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know, but hers certainly kept the shape. So I'm like, okay, it's not just Pinterest showing me. So I have faith.
This sounds marvelous.
Mm-hmm.
It is described as a slightly sweet egg bread. So I think there is a heavy egg component here. I can't remember exactly. I know it's like a certain number of eggs plus egg yolk added to the recipe. Mm-hmm. But I'll get into, when I talk about how I made it, I'll get into all the ingredients and the measurements. It is a bread that needs to rise. So I think the first rise is till it doubles in size, an hour or two. I don't know, probably depends on a few things. And then after you've punched it down and you put it into your pan, then it's going to rise maybe another 30 minutes before you bake it.
Right.
Sometimes the symbols are, I think I said, sometimes they're religious, but sometimes they are also kind of like setting an intention for the following year. So you might have like wheat or plants that kind of symbolize a good harvest. What have you got in yours?
Beautiful.
It almost reminds me of the way that your babka bread looked.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the top. It's got some of them look kind of knotted and
so you're making like shapes, whereas the babka was the entire thing was tied into a shape.
And that's right.
And baked in a pan. In this case, it's the top.
Mm-hmm.
The top you're sort of decorating.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I haven't decided what shapes I will attempt.
Yeah.
I have 3 small-ish vessels. I'm going to bake each of us a small loaf as opposed to one big loaf.
Oh, you should just make the 3 Kitchens podcast logo on top.
Yeah, that sounds easy.
I had an easier one.
Okay. What you got?
You had made before for Easter, you had made I thought this was the cutest thing, a bunny butt cake.
Oh yeah.
That's right.
You remember that? You should do a bunny butt Paska.
Bunny butt on my Paska. I wonder if it would be obvious what it is.
If anybody lump coming out of your bread.
If anybody wants to know what a bunny butt cake looks like, just Google that. It's super cute. Okay, so, and there's a little bit of a legend, I don't know if legend, superstition, maybe, around baking the Paska to ensure that it turns out right. This I read about it says you need to, as you're baking, you need to have positive thoughts so that your positive energy is going into the bread, because you're going to be setting those intentions with your shapes. If you're hoping for a good harvest, then you better be thinking good thoughts to impart that into the bread. Don't sit down while it rises or it may fall flat.
Okay.
Like, oh shit. Stay standing.
So do a workout or do some chores.
Well, listen, if it takes 2 hours, I better keep busy. I don't know. Yeah, it didn't say if that's during the first rise or the second.
Oh,
both?
Both.
Sounds like the whole thing, Heather.
Mm-hmm.
You better just get on your feet, get comfy.
I imagine that these families that were making these breads were also making a whole bunch of other things for Easter dinner, so they didn't get to sit down anyway.
Yeah,
for a couple of hours.
True enough.
Is this just another reason to pass the blame when the harvest goes to shit?
Yeah. Blame the baker.
You weren't positive enough with your bread last year.
Always blame the baker. Always blame the woman. It was probably the baker.
Yeah, the grandma, the poor grandma who baked the bread. Okay, and also make an incantation as you put it in the oven so the decorations stay pretty.
Oh.
I'm not sure. What incantation should I?
Oh.
Am I just like doing the woo, stay pretty, don't fall, don't...
No, I think you need to come up with a limerick. A limerick. Yes. That would be so funny if you got out like a little guitar and started singing.
Yeah.
Well, someone else will have to put it in the oven then. I can't do all that at once. Damn
it, Heather. Don't cop out on us.
I only have 2 hands. So I'm going to think, I'm going to do it. I'm going to think of an incantation.
Yes.
So that when I put it in the oven. Now, the other thing they did, or do perhaps, is bake it, then take it to church on Easter Sunday and have it blessed, and then you eat it after Mass, I guess.
Does your bread have any raisins in it?
No.
Oh, thank
No.
God.
I believe you
Why
can.
spoil a good thing?
Well, I saw some raisins on the thing, and you got me
I know.
talking and thinking hot cross buns. So I was getting
know.
all excited.
No, this sounds delicious. Let's not change that.
I'm not going to put raisins because I know Sarah doesn't enjoy it, and I don't want it to taste like a hot cross bun. So I'm hoping that it's going to be different. And I've never had it, so I want to keep it simple. I'm more concerned with my decorations holding because I'm sure the bread will be delicious. I mean, it's like a sweet bread. It's going to be good.
Oh, is it a sweet bread?
It's slightly sweet. It does definitely have sugar in the recipe.
Right.
It also has lemon zest and orange zest. So I think that it's that kind of bread, not like a sandwich bread. Right.
It's like a coffee bread.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what those decorations will be, but I'm kind of excited to try it.
Yeah, I'm excited to see this.
I
quite creative
look forward to this.
Probably non-traditional, but I don't know. We'll see.
Let the dough show you where to guide it.
Let the incantation guide you.
There you go.
Yeah, it's got to get in the right positive headspace.
So where are your kids going on Friday?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think they'll all be around.
Yeah.
They'll be around. That's okay.
I'm just joking. Right. Our children bring us much joy. I challenge myself to writing you a limerick about
limerick
or something. I don't know.
Limerick. No, I'm going to do an incantation. Limericks are too hard.
What can you give me the definition? Because I am super not English righty.
I think an incantation is just something you're repeating to set an intention about
like
something.
A
I could
mantra.
be wrong. Yeah, like it's
okay. Thank you.
Good enough. But that's more a mantra. No.
And gosh darn it, people like me.
Yes, I remember that.
I'm smart enough.
So
gosh,
I'm good enough.
People like me.
Okay. And a limerick is more of like a little rhymey,
little sing-songy. Yeah.
Okay, well, I expect you both to record your incantation. I will play it because it's supposed to be repeated as I put it in the oven. So I will play yours and I will say mine. And together, the three of us will put all the good vibes into the bread.
All right.
In Alberta, you get to choose who to buy your internet, electricity, and natural gas from. Park Power has low overhead, which in turn allows them to offer low competitive rates.
Reach out for a no-obligation comparison by emailing estimates@parkpower.ca. If you decide to switch, it's easy.
It's really just a change to your billing, and you can feel good knowing you are helping to give back to our communities with your utility bills. Learn more at parkpower.ca. Okay, let's discuss Paska Easter Bread.
Yes.
This, I feel like I need to say up front, maybe I've said before, I do not bake yeast bread very often. I bake quick bread like muffins and loaf like every week because I put it in the kids' lunches. But I am not the most experienced baking with yeast. And I don't know if it's just this recipe, but I felt like it was a lot of work and a lot of bread. Let's talk about it. I almost don't know where to begin because it's a lot. I really admire those people whose tradition this is, and they do it like every year. It's like part of your thing. And I guess if you only bake it once a year, then maybe that's an effort you're willing to put in.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But wow, it's a lot of work. So this recipe is from karinainthekitchen.com. And she said it's adapted from a Martha Stewart recipe. So here we are again. Our friend Martha is influencing. And the yield for this is 2 large round loaves, 9 inches in diameter, or several smaller ones. So that should have been my clue that this is quite big. I didn't measure them, but I made 3. I wouldn't say they were super tiny loaves, like 3 loaves, 1 for each of us. And I had something left. I put in a small loaf pan, a mini loaf pan. So I really had 4 loaves of bread out of this. It's nice. Okay, so you begin by making what is called a sponge. And you are mixing your dry yeast with a tablespoon of flour, a tablespoon of sugar, a few tablespoons of water, and you're letting that bubble up as you do with your yeast, right? You're activating your yeast.
Right.
Then you stir in 4 cups of flour, 2 cups of warm milk, and you mix that together and you cover it with plastic and you let it rise for 30 minutes. That's going to be what's called your sponge. I hadn't heard of this before. So this is why I was like, what are we doing? What is the sponge? What? Is it just me?
No, that sounds totally, it sounds
Different?
very different for sure. Was it so it's a very wet thing that you end up with. Okay.
So, and I trying to film videos all along so that Sarah can put them in our little reels. And my son, my 8-year-old was helping me, thank goodness, because it really felt like a 2-person job, not just to make videos of it, but like to like actually make the bread. And there's a point in the video where usually our voices don't end up in those videos. But Sarah will hear me saying, it's so sticky. It's so, this is so sticky stuff. And my son had some on his hand and he's like, oh, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's gooey, sticky. Yeah.
Is it goopy goop? Or
yeah, it's total goopy goop.
Goopy goop. Okay.
Goop.
And then you put your 3 whole eggs plus 8 egg yolks along with granulated sugar, and you beat that in your KitchenAid, get that going together. And then you're going to add your sponge into that. And it was scooping the sponge into the egg mix that was like, it's so sticky. I can't get it out of the bowl. And at that point I was sweating. I'm sweating right now just thinking about this whole process because it was like, I'm like, oh God.
Post-traumatic cooking.
It was a bit, I felt it was like, I don't know. It was just a lot of kind of new stuff.
Yeah.
And you don't always know if that's exactly what the texture should be and if it's right. And like,
yeah. I always feel on like edge or like I'm like high strung anytime I'm doing anything for this. Cause I'm like trying to pay attention to everything.
Yes, because you want to be able to talk about it after like this.
Yeah.
And you can't really be like making notes as you're
stuck to your spatula.
Yeah. Okay, so you've mixed your sponge into your eggs and sugar, and then you're going to put in the rest of your ingredients, which is salt, vanilla, orange and lemon zest, a few tablespoons of rum or brandy. And in the recipe, it says, or bourbon, if that's all you've got in your cupboard. It's like, wow, poor lowly bourbon. And actually, I did have bourbon. That was the thing I had. So I put in bourbon, then melted, unsalted butter and vegetable oil. Kind of mix that all together. Then add your flour, which is up to 8 cups.
On top of the 4 that you've already added in.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
That was when I got to this point, I was like, this is why there's a lot of bread at the end of this. It's a ton of flour.
Right.
That reminds me of making buns in bulk. It's something like 12 to 18 cups of flour.
Yeah. And actually you run out of room in your mixing bowl before you've even added all the flour. I had to like take it out and mix the last of it by hand. And actually like a spoon is not going to cut it at this point. It's your bowl is full. You've got so much flour.
Oh,
you have to just get in there and like mix it up. And then you're going to once you've got all the flours in there, you turn it out onto your work surface and knead it.
This sounds like a gargantuan size. I just imagine you like wrestling this giant ball of dough.
Well, it's not quite that large,
but it's just
and it was at this point where my son was like, he lost his interest. He was really good. He cracked all the eggs. He separated the yolks, like and he sifted all the flour, and he ran the mixer, and he was into it. And then at this point, he's like, I think I'm kind of done, and he ran off to do something else. So I was on my own to knead. Yeah, so you kneaded about 15 minutes, and then in a giant bowl. You put your dough in there, you kind of oil it lightly, and you cover it with a tea towel and let it rise until it's doubled in volume. Pretty typical. Right. That was somewhere between 1 to 2 hours. I think I just ignored it for 2 hours because I was doing a workout in the gym and I had other things to do. And I was like, I just left it there.
You stayed on your feet, most importantly,
You stayed on your feet.
Yes.
Okay,
while it's rising, don't sit down. Now is where the work really begins.
No.
No, just for me, because this is the first time I had done this. And the Paska, I showed you pictures, has these beautiful shapes on top. Right. And somehow you have to make this very elastic dough form shapes and hold shape on top of your, oh man. Okay.
Oh boy. Poor Heather.
So I had three vessels to cook in. I had the fermentation crock that Erin lent me, which is kind of tall cylinder. And then I had a small casserole dish, that was tall enough, but oval shaped, shorter than the crock. And then I used my 4-cup glass Pyrex measuring cup for the one that I gave to Sarah. I lined them all with parchment because I wasn't exactly sure. It doesn't say that you necessarily need to do that. It just says to put a collar around the inside of a pan, but I think it's really going to depend what kind of pan you're using and whether you need paper or not. And I just didn't know how it might stick or not stick. So
don't take the risk after all that work.
I was going to say,
Can you imagine it getting stuck in that crock and trying to get it out? Oh, God. Okay, so you gently punch it down and reserve a third of it to create your topping decorations.
Oh, okay.
This is a large piece of dough. I just keep saying it because it was so much dough.
It gets bigger in my mind the more you talk about it.
I know.
It's like the size of a medicine ball now.
So you form some balls, poke a few holes in them to remove air pockets, and put your balls of dough into your baking pans or whatever you're using. And it's going to rise again for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, you're going to shape your reserved piece of dough and whatever kinds of shapes you want. And you're going to be kind of gluing them on top with an egg wash. So egg and water mix, and you're kind of brushing it on and sticking those pieces on the top. So the recipe gives you some more traditional types of shapes and things that you can put on there, but I was kind of winging it. Mine are small, right? So if you did have a 9-inch bread, you have a bit more space on top to form your cross and do braids and do things. Okay. Mine were small and it was kind of hard to shape. And I'm telling you, like, this dough is elastic. It doesn't hold, like I would roll it out to try to make like a rope and it would just boing, like back. And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. It's not holding its shape. And I'm just like, oh God. I tried to make a cute little bunny, which looked like a bunny when I put it on, but then after it baked, that was on Erin's, it didn't look like a bunny anymore.
We were trying to determine what this was. Me and the kids, we sat there for the longest time being like, what is on top of the bread?
Oh God. Okay. So, all right. Then you're going to bake it. Once you've got your designs on top, you've preheated your oven to 350, turn it down to 325 after 10 minutes, and then continue to bake at 325 for about 50 minutes. They should be well browned on top and hollow sounding when tapped. I love these sort of directions. It's like, whoa, what are you talking about? Hollow. I'm tapping the bread and I'm listening. It's like, good grief. Okay.
When I worked at the bakery in the co-op, that was what one of the ladies said. You knock on the bread to make sure that it's done. She was like the actual baker, and she was always knocking on the bread.
Interesting.
It doesn't sound like anything. I would just say, like, I don't hear hollow. It's not like it's a like, it's not like tapping, looking for the stud in the drywall. Like, it's not. I'm saying when you knock on the wall, you can hear the difference. You knock on the bread, you're not hearing. Like, I actually put my instant read thermometer in there because I had read, not in this recipe, but in something else where I read some instructions on Paska and it had a temperature. I've forgotten what it was now, but I did check the internal temperature of my bigger loaf just to see.
Right.
But I was kind of going by color. It looked dark like the pictures, and I was like, okay, that's good enough. Now, what happens when they're in the oven is they continue to rise up.
Yes.
So up out of the pan or whatever it's in. And my oven is kind of small. And I had it at the bottom and it was like, getting dangerously close to the top of the oven. Like Erin's crock was like tall and it was coming out. And I was like, oh no, I think it's too tall. Oh my God, this is why I'm sweating just talking about it. It was a little bit stressful. And I'm like,
this episode reminds me of when Erin did that mayo. You're
Because
like,
it
what's
was
going to happen next? What's going to happen?
And then, oh God.
Then what? Did they burn? I don't know. No. I think, so I managed not to burn it, although it was quite dark at the top.
Okay, good.
Then I will just quickly mention that I also made, and then we'll get on to your reviews. I also made a little jam for you to go with.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you did make it.
Yes, I did. Where'd you think
Fantastic.
it came from?
Oh, my husband and I made a joke. We said, so do you think Heather made this jam or just scooped it out of a jam jar and pretended?
Oh
gosh. Okay, I found a recipe for dried apricot jam. So it was made using dried apricots.
Okay.
It's not apricot season here, so
No.
no.
And this
That's
is
one of the reasons we were suspect.
There's no season here right
Yeah.
now. There's no growing season here right now.
This is from lordbyronskitchen.com. And I just wanted to tell you what he has on his.
Sorry.
Is
Is his name actually Lord Byron? Like, is he actually a lord?
No idea. I think his name is just Byron, but I thought it was so cute when I came across it. I quite like Byron based on his little bio here, because he says, I'm Byron and I'm a lover of food, cats, crochet, cross stitch, and Christmas. Basically anything that is pretty and delicious. And I was like, Byron, let's be friends. That sounds really sweet.
And starts with C. Yeah.
And his picture, he looks like a fun person. Okay. You've got dried apricots, water, orange juice, lemon juice, and sugar. Reduce that down because you want your apricots to rehydrate.
Right.
Okay.
And then I just did a simple water bath to can it. And there you go. Okay. Now I want to know what you thought of this pasta.
Did you, sorry, with the jam, did you pulse it after or after it
I did,
hydrated?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
In the food processor. Yeah, I did.
All right.
Yeah.
So the jam you actually made. Yeah,
I did.
we had this debate. Do you think she actually made this? Where'd she get the apricots from? Blah blah blah.
I actually had never thought of making a jam with dried fruit.
No.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of, when I came across it, because I wanted something different. I didn't want to make berry jam, which is what I typically do, because we always have lots of berries. And I knew I could make that with frozen berries, but I didn't really want that. And so this was a nice change, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. And I think it went really well with the bread.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One question.
Okay.
Did you bake all of these at the same time?
I did.
Oh, cool. That's one thing I was wondering, if because they were all slightly different sizes, did one come out sooner than the other? Like, was it kind of a balancing act, or did you just, I mean, I know MacGyver pulled it off.
I took out, I mentioned that I had a little piece left. So I did that little mini loaf that definitely came out earlier.
Right.
And the one that I did in the casserole dish,
Right.
I ended up rotating that one to my oven is kind of hotter in the back left corner, as I found out when I did a little test around.
Right.
So I did rotate the bigger ones once, like kind of halfway through. I kind of rotated them around, but I took them out roughly at the same time. They all kind of turned brown. I think the volume was close enough. And in fact, I weighed the dough when I put it in. I can't remember now what the weight was, but they were very close in the volume of dough.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Just different shapes.
Fun.
Yeah. So if you have a big enough oven, you should be able to cook.
You can do it all at once. I was going to say it would have been a lot of standing while you baked for 3 hours.
And it wasn't the standing wasn't required while it was baking. I think that was just while it was rising. But I did the incantations when I put it in the oven.
Fun.
So I played. I couldn't do it all. It was a little bit to juggle, but I played your guys's that you had recorded, and I said one that I've now forgotten, but I did record it. We can play those here if we want to.
Yeah, let's hear all of our incantations.
Dear Paska, nobody wants to be known as just a pretty face, but just this once, it's all I'm asking, until we get a taste.
Rise up, rise up, rise up, yeast. Soon it's time to have our feast.
Bake up nice, my sweet Paska. Don't be a sussy baka. Bestow us some riches and some fame for us. Oops.
And I tried to just talk. I was talking to the oven like, okay, bake up pretty. You need to look good.
My kids found the crock sitting on my counter when we got home, and they're like, "What's this?
So cool.
Can we eat this?" And so they pulled out the bag, and then there was the whole loaf below because the part that was rising above. They were really excited by this. I was like, "Well, it's like a good luck Easter bread." Mm-hmm. And that's when the kids were like, "Oh, is it Easter? Do we get to do an egg hunt?" And I was like, No. That's still weeks away. We're just on top of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they're like, "Oh, well, can we still eat the bread or do we have to wait till Easter?" And I was like, "Oh no, we're eating the bread right now." So we sliced it up and put it in the toaster to warm it up a little bit. As soon as we opened the bag, my little guy was like, "Oh, it smells so lemony and delicious." Like, oh, I should have recorded the whole thing because they were just so cute. So good. I loved the texture of it. It just like was so soft. It like melted in your mouth with the eggs in there.
Yeah,
and,
I think that's the egg, right?
Oh man, was that good. And then we were learning a little bit about the Paska bread and the good luck stuff. And then when my son, it was his night on dishes, he was like, "That good luck bread is working for me already. Look at how few dishes I have to do tonight."
Cute.
Yeah. I definitely put that in the incantation, and the symbols on the bread meant few dishes. Yeah.
Okay. So we had a very small amount left below the decoration part. And so we wrapped it up back in the bag and then popped it back on top of the crock. And so when my husband came home later that night, he was like, "Ooh," and I was like, "Oh, come and try this." And he lifts it up. And it's only like this much bread left underneath it. "Oh, where did the rest of it go?" And I was like, "Well, this is your piece that's left over. Sorry."
Yeah.
Me and the kids got at it first. So
Nice.
very, very positive reviews all around. And it was extremely lucky bread for some of us.
I hope so.
Yeah. So Lady Sarah here. And it was funny because my Lord husband my Lord husband said, "Oh, did Heather harvest this from her garden with the apricots?" And I'm like, "Can you look outside and tell me how that would be possible?" But I knew that they were from they were the dried ones because we use them in our turkey stuffing. And I would never have in my life gone to a store and went, "Oh, I want apricot jam." But it went so perfectly with this bread.
Yeah.
Which I think would have been delicious. And this is coming from me who hates raisins and such. I think it would have been delicious with dried fruit in this. So the fact that you had the jam next to it was perfect for me because then I didn't have to eat the raisins and stuff like that. The family loved it. Kieran was disappointed the day he asked for more and there wasn't any left.
Oh no.
Because all he said was, "No, I want that bread. I want that bread." He didn't know how to pronounce it, so it was that bread. And it was really good, worth the hours and hours of effort for sure, Heather. And that jam was so good.
Sweating.
We could taste all of your love and effort.
My love and anxiety.
We could taste the luck. I thought it was so yummy.
I'm glad that you liked it. I liked it too. And I think it came down to the zest. The citrus in it made all the difference. I think it would be a nice bread on its own, but the citrus kind of elevated it to like a treat.
Oh,
it was like I had it with tea and it was like perfect. Like a nice little treat, like almost like cake, but not cake.
Yeah.
And so that's when we had it, was tea time, like our usual afternoon slump snack. And it was so good with that zest and the sugar from the apricot jam. And then it gives you that like, oh, I can deal with the rest of the day kind of moment. Right?
I can make it through.
Yeah. It was gobbled up really quickly in my house. It went fast. You could probably find a recipe that makes less. I think this was just such a big recipe, unless you want to share, which is great. If you know, it's like making a big batch of something though. you have to be prepared that you're going to have a lot.
Right.
It takes a lot of flour, a lot of eggs, 11 eggs altogether, 12 cups of flour. Like it's a lot, but you could probably find a smaller recipe is what I'm thinking somewhere.
I think we should make this together next year since it takes so many people. Like I can see this would be like, it was really nice that your son was at least around for some of it. But I can see this being something that you would do like with your grandma and your mom, and like that you would all work together to kind of make this happen because it's like,
a lot.
Yeah. And if it's a traditional thing that you make at Easter, then that's a nice way to do it, is get together and bake together.
I would want this at any holiday.
I really liked the it was almost like a tea time,
like a tea cake.
Yeah, like a tea cake almost, but a tea bread, if that makes any sense. Like it was just like totally reminded me of what I used to do as a kid, because we always had tea time, right? We sat down together and we ate, and this was something that reminded me of that.
It's just, I feel like it's more work than like a quick bread that I would normally have for the, like, and I had such trouble with the designs on the top. Like, I don't know that there must be a trick to working with the dough. I don't know. There's apparently another type of recipe that it's kind of meant just for the decorative dough, which is you'd make it separately. It's not, I think it's meant to hold its shape. But I got the idea that this was not typical. This is something maybe someone came up with as a way to make it prettier and easier and maybe more for a show.
Right.
Yeah. My tip on that is if you want to use the same dough, and because I do a lot of these buns with these stretchy kind of doughs, and then I try to make shapes with them, is I flatten it more. And when you flatten it more, it's actually easier to work with, but you really got to flatten it.
Like roll it out.
Yeah, it will rise, but it keeps its shape better. So that's more work. So,
and also I would say keep your designs simple, because they do rise and spread out and move a little bit, and like maybe if it's just simpler, or it wouldn't matter if it spreads out a little bit. I don't know.
Right.
I'm not sure. There you go.
No, it was great. So yummy. And thank you, Lord Byron, because I just need to see his name.
Lord Byron with his jam. Yes. And if you're local here, while we're discussing a Ukrainian recipe.
Yes.
I would say probably no matter where you are in the world, there are ways to support the Ukrainian community right now. And I looked up a few local Ukrainian food vendors who you might like to support. There's Ukrainian Fine Foods, Kalina European Food Market, Heritage Bakery and Deli, Baba Jenny's Ukrainian Food, and the Pierogi Guy, which I think we've all heard of. That's kind of a popular one. Look some of those up and try to support the local Ukrainian community as we can.
Fantastic. That's great.
If you look them up, you might find maybe someone's baking up Paska for Easter, and you could go taste the authentic, the real thing. I'd be interested.
Well, I already
to compare.
have. So.
I'd be interested to compare it to see what a Ukrainian bakery.
That would be interesting to do the taste test.
Yeah.
See how close I came to the real deal.
I think you did pretty good.
It was
there,
very
Heather.
Delicious. Yeah.
You could also do a babka, which is another Eastern European bread, typically made at Easter as well, which we know was delicious. Also a little bit of work, but you could look back at when I made that on a previous episode, and that was also delicious.
Easier to shape.
Yes, much easier to shape, but also quite a bit of work. Well worth it. Really delicious.
I'd say most yeast breads are involved.
Yeah.
If you're going to make a yeast bread, you're kind of committing
to
the process, because it's going to take all day.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you, Heather.
And happy Easter to all of
Easter,
our
everyone.
Easter.
Yes. Whew, that one's done.
And now for the fine print. We at Three Kitchens gratefully acknowledge we are telling these stories in the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 nations in southern Alberta and the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We honor the rich tradition of oral storytellers on this land who have come before us. You can find pictures and recipe links on Instagram and Facebook at Three Kitchens Podcast. If you like and subscribe on your podcast player, that helps more people find us.
When I was making the dough, my hands got really sticky. I loved it!